1, 2, 3, 4.
Here's a little secret. Half of my news videos are deemed entirely unsafe for advertising, and I still have no idea why. As a result, I often hold back on a lot of the most controversial stories to appease the YouTube algorithm that rules my life. This week, however, I'm going to hold back nothing. Without further ado, here's a completely uncut version of this week's news without the bullshit. The US state of Illinois has passed criminal justice reforms, which has made cannabis legal within the state for individuals over the age of 21. The reforms will also wipe the criminal records of roughly 770,000 residents who have cannabis-related offenses. The Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act will take effect next year and will include $12 million in startup grants for businesses related to cannabis. At the same time, Russia plans to tow a nuclear power station to the Arctic Ocean. The city of Detroit hurts itself in its confusion, and an enormous pile of shit causes a 10,000-acre wildfire in Spain. Desmond Amafap, better known as Etika, on YouTube, has been found dead in New York, with his belongings found on Manhattan Bridge on Monday. The 29-year-old made a name for himself as predominantly a gaming figure and had unfortunately had a history of mental illness. Viewers who suspect they may suffer from poor mental health are advised to seek support from friends, family, and experienced professionals. At the same time, Canada decides to classify neo-Nazi groups as terrorist organizations. Meanwhile, the already experienced German citizens dealt with their Nazi problem by collectively buying a town's entire supply of beer. German problems require German solutions. A spike in planned immigration from Hong Kong has been sparked by the infamous extradition bill that has seen millions of people protesting over the past few months. To understand this properly, let's have a fun lesson in history. For around 2000 years, Hong Kong was part of China until the British discovered the country, became collectively addicted to tea, and started trading and importing a metric shit ton of the stuff from the Chinese mainland. By the 19th century, there was such a trade imbalance between the two nations that China refused to accept any other currency besides either gold or silver. The British government, not wanting to pay with either of these commodities, decided to start forcibly exporting opium to China, which eventually led to a series of wars, which gave the British control of Hong Kong. However, by 1898, the tea-drinking degenerates were worried that defending the already exposed and surrounded port would be far too difficult, so they signed a deal with China that the region would be returned after 99 years. In 1997, the now thriving Hong Kong was officially handed back to the People's Republic of China with the condition that it would retain a level of autonomy for the next 50 years. Fast forward to 2019, and a bill is proposed that would allow Hong Kong citizens to be extradited to mainland China, a country that has been heavily criticized for human rights abuses and corruption, which has left citizens in a state of panic. Since the start of the widespread protests, which have now been going for the past 3 months, there have been over 30 arrests, over 70 injuries, and 2 deaths related to the controversial bill. Citizens of Hong Kong have recently raised over $5 million for front-page international newspaper ads designed to force more attention to what they call a serious threat to the region. Meanwhile, here are all the people the US president has pissed off this week. Moving on, the living meme of a Philippine president, Rodrigo Duterte, has threatened his opponents with prison time if any attempts are made to impeach him from office. Mr. Duterte has made several previous appearances on this series, having earlier in the year claimed to have cured himself of homosexuality. The most recent threat that a top UN official has called yet another link in a pattern of persecution and free speech comes after he stated earlier in the year that the military should shoot him if he ever became a dictator. At the same time, Germany has lost track of 160 suspected terrorists and peaceful French climate change protesters are tear-gassed on the hottest day in the country's history. In technology, proposed legislation in the United States could force tech companies to reveal how much your data is worth to advertisers. Apple MacBook batteries pique the interest of wealthy ISIS fighters, and robots are estimated to replace 20 million factory jobs in the next decade. Meanwhile, the United States is starting to move away from coal, and the Pentagon can now identify people by their heartbeats. In entertainment, Paul Rudd has been cast in the next Ghostbusters movie. The Charlie's Angels reboot finally has a trailer. Elton John receives an award for AIDS activism, and The Office will be taken from Netflix for a sum of $500 million. In gaming, EVE Online players were blindsided by a surprise attack by the developers. Black Ops 4 developers are treated like shit. Account boosting is a jailable offense in Korea, and people playing games really fast raises over $3 million. This has been a completely uncensored week of news without the bullshit. A link to my Twitter, Discord, and Patreon will all be in the description.
Wink wink.
Outro.